you get into the world of politics, I tell everybody everything is political.
The criminals are in the White House! Shut it down! They're shutting down!
People get very technical about human lives. Legitimately, nothing that we're doing around this whole situation is practical, and I feel like that's not really a narrative.
Mayor, I'm going to reclaim my time.
And public health, and I will continue to make those investments.
Your approval rating speaks volumes.
Well, the people approve of my investments, and I will continue to make those investments.
You're going the wrong direction. You need to reverse your policies on sanctuary cities. That's what the election.
In the state of Illinois, we do have protections for our immigrant community. However, that does not stop a police officer from doing what they want.
We are people! We are people! We are people! ¡Sí se puede! ¡Hasta la victoria!
For the Poor Proles Almanac, I'm Dominic Guanzon. Here in Chicagoland, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, has stepped up their operations since the start of Trump's second administration, and the region has been alight with activity to try and counter it. It began with press leaks of Operation Safeguard the week before Trump's second inauguration, in which as many as 200 ICE officers would be deployed to Chicago to conduct arrests and deportations. There was a lot of panicked posting on social media. I have a number of friends who work in education, government administration, or just are themselves Hispanic, and I can anecdotally share they were all sounding the alarm bells. On January 24th, 4 days into Trump's second term, 2 federal officials appeared in front of a Chicago public school with a 90% Hispanic student body. The feds never entered the school, but they did look through the front door windows to peer inside. That was enough for school officials to go into a soft lockdown, fearing the men were ICE. It later turned out they were Secret Service agents investigating an unrelated threat.
Video tonight showing Secret Service agents outside a Chicago elementary school last week, leading to tense moments among people who thought ICE agents had showed up. A CPS protocol was put in place when school leaders mistakenly thought the Secret Service agents were ICE agents.
Despite the miscommunication, the episode is indicative of the fear Chicago's minority conclaves have felt. And since the operation's start, there is a reason for that fear. A CBS News article found that during Trump's first term, 588,000 total ICE arrests were made. Doing some napkin math, that's about 400 arrests a day for 4 years of Trump's first term. Conversely, Biden made 500,000 arrests, or about 345 a day. Slightly lower number, still over 500,000, but hey, lower than Trump, right? According to a New York Times article from March 4th, Trump has made 23,000 arrests in the past month. I wish that sentence was clearer, but how I'm interpreting it is that within the literal 28 days between February 4th and March 4th, there have been 23,000 ICE arrests. That would put the daily average at 821 arrests per day here in Trump's second administration. Granted, there's some evidence that pokes holes in the numbers. According to the Transactional Records Access Clearinghouse of Syracuse University, ICE deportations are down 6% as of February 25th, and the empirical evidence from beyond what the Trump administration is tweeting isn't quite as solid. Regardless, the numbers are still big and perhaps more dangerously, vague. ICE has not broken down its 2025 numbers so far, including how many arrests took place in Chicago. According to Chicago's top cop Larry Snelling, at least 100 people were arrested in Chicagoland. But that was just the first day of the operation. Local news organization Block Club Chicago has been repeatedly contacting ICE for information on its operations since January 18th.
ICE officials have gone quiet about what they actually did during those roundups in January. Over the last 5 weeks, Block Club submitted more than a dozen inquiries and records requests to ICE seeking basic information about the enforcement actions during the early days of Trump's new administration. The agency has not answered any of Block Club's questions directly. It has also failed to produce even a summary of people it has rounded up or the charges they've faced. On 2 occasions, ICE public affairs officials responded with promises to follow up later with information. They never did. Almost all of other inquiries generated auto-responses that said in part, if you are a member of the media, a press team member will respond to your query as soon as possible. But no one else ever responded.
What the administration is telling us, loudly and repeatedly, is who those arrests apparently are. Operation Safeguard's stated goal is to hone in on criminal and gang elements among the undocumented. Tom Homan is Executive Associate Director for Enforcement and Removal Operations. In the media, he's referred to as Trump's so-called border czar. According to Homan, a few days before the election,
ICE will start arresting public safety threats and national security threats on day 1.
Matt, can you play up the fascist piece of shit in the voice a little more?
He's saying have a South African accent.
I don't even know how to do a South African accent on that one.
You don't, because you're based. That's okay.
ICE will start arresting... No.
As a reminder, simply being an undocumented migrant is not a criminal act. It is a civil violation, but not a crime. Now, government agencies across the board will often post press releases on their website to talk about what they've been up to and how it's good for the country. That's basic public relations, and ICE is no different. For instance, on February 26th, Homeland Security, the department that oversees ICE, posted a press release with the header, "Under President Trump, ICE arrests have increased by 627%. Kind of an insane number, but at least it's, pretty bog standard in the press release. What ICE is doing differently is making a full-on media campaign out of the industry of deporting people, including on social media. On Twitter, the social media platform that's always okay to dead name, the official Homeland Security Twitter account posted an infographic on February 26th, reading, "In a single month, under President Trump and Secretary Noem, more than 20,000 illegal aliens arrested, compared to 33,000 at-large arrests under Biden for all of last year, equals 627% increase in monthly arrests." Meanwhile, behind the text is a Brady Bunch-style pattern of mugshots, some whose subjects have face tattoos, the selection clearly playing into the foreign-looking type. On January 28th, the ICE Twitter account posted a picture of a Hispanic-looking man with a face tattoo. Surrounding his face is text that reads, "Arrested and pending removal, January 27th, 2025, Chicago, Illinois, Honduran national, crimes, robbery and escape, retail theft, confirmed swear no gang member, Chicago."
Jesus Christ, not the retail theft.
Anything but retail.
Oh, that'll come soon enough in the most depressing way possible. Interestingly enough, no name on that picture, but they did have Chicago on there twice. Now, to be fair, there's a decent chance this guy does indeed suck, but ICE Twitter definitely isn't concerned about innocent until proven guilty. Also, the insanely propagandized way this is being posted should be deeply concerning to anyone who is apprehensive of big government. In what is the most unhinged post I've seen yet comes from the White House Twitter account, which shows a video of ASMR, illegal alien deportation flight. What you're hearing is a video of arrested individuals being shuffled away in chains and onto flights that will deport them. The video makes sure to cut to the parts with diegetic sound, such as the clinking of cuffs and the whir of idle aircraft.
Jesus.
It's just that.
So what's concerning to me is how much the content is being created apolitically, in the sense that it's not being developed for the purpose of necessarily making a case for this process, but making it a media spectacle.
Yeah.
And not just doing that, but doing it from what you might want to call apolitical government accounts. It's one thing to have the president use his personal Trump whatever account to make these things. It's another to do it from organizations or departments that do not necessarily have politics. They're informed by politics and influenced by them, but they are not supposed to be political.
Yeah. Well, it's cheerleading.
It's like Captain America.
Yeah, it
Captain America. Did you say Captain America?
Yeah, like it's got that like vibe of like wholesome America saving us from bad guys.
You think?
In a way that is just totally...
I think it's like, I don't think it's Superman at all. I think it's like, you look at that video and it's like, okay, obviously like some pretty evil shit, but it's like cheerleading some of like even to like a conservative, what might be some of the most like noxious parts of the like policies they support.
It's a bit black pill, like red pilled, black pilled, right?
It's 1,000% that. Like that video either had to have been made by like a Doge employee whose like employee base is like 18 to 21 years old and they just couldn't get any pussy in college, so this is what they're resorting to, or they're Stephen Miller
specifically,
which is like the closest thing to a neo-Nazi on the White House staff. Yeah,
like 10 years ago that would have been like only on Breitbart. Now it's like from like a DHS.
That one was from the official White House Twitter account.
Right.
It's just taking joy in it.
Exactly.
Because like the quote unquote smart way of playing this, the smart like Rockefeller Republican way of doing it or Reagan way of doing it is to just smile, look pretty, downplay it, and then let all the bad shit happen in the background. And then like a podcast will talk about your shitty crimes 40 years later after you're long dead. This one is like actively taking part and reveling it. Like how Captain America is like beating back the Nazis.
Yeah.
Captain America issue number 1, by the way, had him literally punching Hitler in the face. Now this is the where it's like same energy where it's like, haha, we're doing this. We're deporting all the criminals. We're arresting all the bad guys, just general bad guys.
Yeah. Bad guys TM. Yeah.
And it's not surprising as a Gamergate survivor who's been watching this play out on the internet since at least 2015. But to see it 10 years later in the White House, like the White House doing this shit you're right. It is insane. And I have here, as Adam Sewer wrote for The Atlantic, the cruelty is the point.
Right.
Which is, like a core tenet of how conservatism is these days.
Right.
So naturally, if the Trump White House is screaming about all the criminals they're arresting, we can reasonably treat the claim with apprehension. According to The Guardian,
in years past, most people arrested by ICE did not have felony criminal convictions. Through detailed statistics on arrestees not available for 2025, between October 2022 and November 2024, 78% of people arrested by the agency had a misdemeanor conviction or no conviction at all. Only 21% of people had a felony criminal conviction. The agency has published data from 2014 to 2024, with less granular data on arrests, detailing only whether each person arrested had any conviction at all. Since the pandemic, ICE has routinely arrested more people without any criminal conviction.
In the U.S., for now, citizens have the right to a speedy trial under the Sixth Amendment. The undocumented do not. According to a story from NBC5 Chicago,
immigration courts are facing a backlog of 3.6 million cases, and as a result, some pending cases may not be heard for years. At least 16,000 current ICE detainees have notices to appear in court, which means they are waiting for a court date. To relieve space, the administration is now using new detention locations in Texas and Kentucky. It is also seeking to expand detention capacity available to its Denver field office, which includes Colorado and Wyoming, by at least 900 beds, according to new public documents.
Also, side note, I learned from a person that I interviewed, who you will hear at some point later on in this series, is there are no ICE detention centers in Illinois. And that's thanks to the Illinois Way Forward Act passed in 2021, which banned and mandated their closing. Which is good because, you don't want counties profiting off of detention centers. So screw you, McHenry and Kankakee counties, for suing Illinois when that passed. $10 million for an ICE detention center. What a joke. So that's morally good that passed. But that means anyone arrested in Chicago, anyone you hear about getting arrested during this story that I talk about, will not even be in the state of Illinois. They will be moved at best to like Wisconsin.
Amazing.
So imagine trying to track down your family member across state lines and the potential for them not being able to speak English.
Yeah.
Yeah. Terrible.
Somehow that's still better than what's going on down south. Again, NBC5 Chicago writes,
the Trump administration has also begun transferring immigration detainees to Guantanamo Bay, where it eventually plans to hold as many as 30,000 people. It has already brought 112 detainees there, and more flights are in the works.
So just to be clear, again, we are sending people and packing Guantanamo. That thing that was a big point of contention during the Bush administration is now, because we never closed that up, it is now once again being used to just stuff full of immigration detainees. That's
of brown people.
Yeah. There might be some Ukrainians in there. I don't know.
Thanks, Obama.
Honestly, he held I don't get into it in this story at all. I have at best like a couple of side swipes because there's just so much going on with this administration. But there's a lot the Democrats absolutely could have done. I guess you could say that about the Democrats in general, just about any issue. But there's a lot Biden and Obama could have done during their 12 years combined as presidents. All right.
And Obama's supermajority.
Hey, this is Dominic in Post. You're going to hear some real-time fact-checking, but just know that as I'm editing this, there's a bunch of back and forth. So the Trump administration has been bringing migrants back and forth into and out of Guantanamo. Trump says he wants to house as many as 30,000 migrants as in Guantanamo. Just know that this is kind of in part of the flood the zone strategy in conjunction with incompetence, weaponized incompetence, where they're just trying the vagueness and the confusion of it all in a short amount of time it's a strategy that the Trump administration, I think, kind of fell into, but they found that it can work very effectively for themselves.
Is this the most up-to-date thing on Guantanamo?
Honestly, probably not.
So this is from the New York Times. ICE returns all migrants from Guantanamo to stateside facilities.
For now. But they did it.
Yeah, I mean, this might just be another headline in here. ICE returns all migrants from Guantanamo to stateside facilities. A court filing described strip searches and the use of restraint chairs on some of the 290 migrants from the Trump administration has cycled through the base. That's from the New York Times.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds like Guantanamo, baby. Oh boy.
MAGA.
Yeah, again, the Democrats not really doing much as a party and not preparing for a moment like this, especially after Trump had his first term. That sounds like the Democrats. And I don't think ICE is going to be much nicer this time around. In fact, ICE agents legally won't be given the chance. In law enforcement, there is what is known as discretion, which allows officers of all kinds to identify and interpret statutes according to their best judgment. It's one of the core things you're supposed to vote on when voting for a sheriff. On January 29th, Congress passed the Lakin-Riley Act. In short, it requires Homeland Security to detain non-U.S. nationals who have been arrested for, and I quote, burglary, theft, larceny, or shoplifting, unquote, as in unquote from the literal law in the books. Sarah Mehta of the ACLU sums it up best.
Under the bill, individuals would be mandatorily locked up, potentially for years, because at some point in their lives, perhaps a decade ago, they were accused of nonviolent offenses like shoplifting.
But that's just what's directly addressed in the law. And as we all know, laws have side effects. In a separate writing, the ACLU released a statement about what is likely really going to happen with this bill.
A person who was not even charged with or arrested for any crime could be subject to mandatory detention without a hearing, and even if immigration officials did not think their detention warranted.
During the Republican National Convention in 2024, banners, signs, and chyrons were sprawled with the words, "Mass deportations now." The legal and mainstream groundwork has been laid bare. Back to Chicagoland, where families are on edge, ICE agents claim to be laser-focused on known criminals, but one agent in a ride-along with NBC5 says otherwise.
A senior administration official tells NBC News ICE arrested nearly 1,200 undocumented immigrants on Sunday, some wanted for assault and armed robbery, but adding only about half had prior criminal records, in addition to being in the country illegally. Do you expect collateral arrests in these operations?
Yeah, I definitely expect it to happen. I mean, we have the laws on the books and our officers are out there.
Just straight up says it.
It's fine.
And we'll get to the city soon enough, but its surrounding suburbs are also feeling the pressure. Bolingbrook is an often overlooked suburb off Interstate 55, about an hour southwest of Chicago and Cook County. While technically part of a different county, Bolingbrook is part of the Chicago Western Suburbs, home of infamously white, affluent communities such as Naperville and Heightened. For reference, Naperville Mom is a beloved regional insult for many of the occupants of the town's multi-million McMansions, and Wheaton College is a deeply religious institution that held its first dance in 2003, and whose alumni includes Russell Vought, a high-ranking Trump official and Project 2025 architect.
Is Wheaton the inspiration for the tiny town of Footloose?
Honestly, probably, maybe not directly.
Is the college headed by the mayor of the tiny town of Footloose?
It's not a tiny town. It is it's very much a built up suburb.
Mm-hmm.
Wheaton, dude, we could do a whole episode on Wheaton College. I swear to God. The college was founded, I think, in like 1860 something, and their first dance, at least like men and women dance, was in 2003.
Wow. Bummer. A lot of gays at Wheaton, huh?
Man, you missed out.
I should have been going to Wheaton.
This is like tradwife heaven. I'm not joking.
Man, could have danced with all the men at Wheaton.
Yeah, would have been great.
All right, but let's talk about Bolingbrook here. All right, Bolingbrook's pretty rad. Bolingbrook is a little different. It's one of the most racially diverse towns in the western suburbs, with a 2020 population that's 36% white, 19% black, 13% Asian, and 26% Hispanic or Latino. Compare that to neighboring Downers Grove and its 80% white population. In case it wasn't obvious, I've spent a lot of time in Chicagoland's western suburbs, and I can personally attest to all of these numbers.
No, you just take a professional interest.
But numbers aside, there's a blue-collar feeling to the place. I forgot I wrote this. I might cut this out, but fuck it. I'm going to just spread the tea. After all, the town built a drivable mall in 2007 as an implicit way to create a downtown from scratch. But it never really took off in that way, since most people's day-to-day still revolves around getting their groceries and commiserating done in the closer walkable areas. Perhaps it's because the town is also the home of WeatherTech, known for those easy-to-clean car floor mats that just featured an ad in the Super Bowl. We'll ignore that WeatherTech CEO is a billionaire yacht owner that's embracing Trump's tariffs. Or maybe it's just because the Menards is next to the Culvers, which is just a stone's throw away from the O'Reilly Auto Parts, across the road from the Speedway gas station. We're still in the Midwest after all. Whichever way you slice it, Bolingbrook doesn't put on airs as much as its neighbors in Naperville tend to do, and on February 2nd, I received a last-minute tip that locals would be protesting against ICE deportations in front of the high school. I arrived at the tail end of the demonstration, and I found about 50 people, almost all young and Hispanic, still there. They were standing on the side of the road with dozens of signs encouraging drivers to honk their horns in support. It's a very suburban way of protesting, at times feeling more like a local church putting on a charity car wash. But the message was summarized by my favorite sign.
I drank my horchata without ice.
Can you spice that horchata?
No, the only time I got pronunciation points in my Spanish class was when I figured out how to do the Barcelonan lisp. And
Barcelona,
yeah,
yes.
So that's
Matt's already peaked, is what he's saying.
Yeah, I think number 2 was the one.
Hey, you know what? Kudos to you for just immediately surrendering. I respect it.
I have a fucked up accent and a stuffed up nose. I'm not getting the accent right on horchata.
We're also recording this on St. Patrick's Day, I should say. So
yeah,
intersectionality, something Ireland, the Troubles. Okay.
Yeah.
The protest's organizer was also present. A young Bolingbrook local with a megaphone, not part of any organization, and for their safety, I'll withhold their name.
There's so many people who are here undocumented, and people don't realize that. They of course they see in the news, but they never realize how many people it is, or it's somebody close to you that you don't even realize. So I feel like it's definitely important to kind of like let everybody know what's going on, let everybody know their rights. Oh, they're just deporting criminals, but that's very on the contrary. They're not only, yes, they're targeting criminals, but they're also deporting a lot of families in very unjust ways. So I definitely want to bring that to light in the community. A lot of these ICE people, they're targeting warehouses. And I actually talked to another lady who told me that her manager has been giving other employees the number to call ICE.
Wow.
They'll like take pictures of like ICE activity. Like for example, like there was an arrest made at RJW warehouses.
The organizer is referring to RJW Logistics Group, a shipping and warehouse company with warehouses in Texas and here in Illinois, including Bolingbrook and neighboring towns. Despite the national attention on Chicago, ICE made one arrest at an RJW warehouse on January 30th, according to a joint community alert on social media by the Warehouse Workers for Justice, Spanish Community Center, and Southwest Suburban Immigrant Project.
We went out to investigate reports of ICE activity at local warehouses in Lockport, Bolingbrook, Romeoville, and Woodridge. We were able to confirm that ICE visited several warehouses, but only one arrest took place at the RJW warehouse in Lockport, while other warehouses denied them entry. Thank you to the community members who reported the activity.
In the What's Happening in Bolingbrook, Illinois Facebook page, an anonymous user posted a scan of a letter that appears to be from RJW leadership to employees. The letter is in Spanish, but a fluent friend of mine translated it. It reads in part,
"Dear employees, I know there are many concerned about ICE activity at one of our buildings. To clarify, we had an individual who was taken into custody with a warrant of proper arrest. None of our other buildings were objects of interest. Only one employee at one of our warehouses was impacted."
The letter goes on.
To clarify, RJW's policy when ICE visits our properties is to comply with the law and particularly with the terms provided for in the arrest warrant. In addition, our experience and understanding is that ICE is currently seeking only specific individuals with a criminal record. We will not allow any unauthorized access to our properties or our employees, including any general raid of our worksite.
RJW Logistics Group did not respond to requests for comment and confirmation of the letter. Also, I just want to say it, especially in the suburbs, if you want to have your like your ear to the ground on stuff, joining those What's Happening in X town is
they're the best.
Okay, they get memed on, and they should be, and they can be a cesspool of absolute garbage, but
but also you'll know everything.
You will know, yes. You kind of need to be involved with it. If you deleted your Facebook account, all power to you. I'm not saying that you need to get back on it, but if you do have your Facebook account still, that might be, and you can, I think some of them, I think it depends on the settings, but you can like post, don't even post anything. You don't need to post anything. Just read what's going on, and it can be helpful. I am not a journalist, but I do pity people who do journalism things because they can't delete their Twitters. They have to engage in everything, and it truly does suck. So Facebook can be useful.
Eat shit, Zuck.
Uncertainty, lack of stability, and deep-seated fear. And Bolingbrook is just one microcosm of what's been playing out across the country. Granted, for decades, through every modern president since at least Eisenhower, including Obama and Biden, but to a new alarming level under Trump. So how are local leaders reacting? Bolingbrook falls under Illinois' 11th district, which has been held for 12 years, 7 election cycles, by Democrat Bill Foster. On February 20th, he held a telephone town hall with constituents, or anyone else who had the number. I attempted to ask a question about ICE, but unfortunately my question was pre-screened by a staffer, and I don't think they wanted to touch that one. There were also thousands of people on the call with questions, so I didn't take it personally. While Congressman Foster didn't touch on migrants or immigration, take a listen to this answer on being the opposition party.
What can the minority party in Congress actually do to help rein this in?
The truth is, we lost the last election. A bunch of people who maybe cared a lot about Medicaid and other things didn't show up and vote, and as a result, we lost. And I tell you what, we're not going to do is go send a mob to storm the government and try to overthrow the government. We're going to deal with the fact that it's in a democracy. If you lose an election, then you just do your best to be the loyal opposition and to present a better alternative and a better way forward, and hope to convince the opposing party, or at least a few of them, to change their minds about some things. So, the truth is we have limited power, and we're depending a lot on the courts. The courts, even the Supreme Court, is a mixed bag. Some of them are just all, frankly, party hacks. But there are some thoughtful people on the Supreme Court, even appointed by Trump, who understand how the Constitution is supposed to work. And that is to say that the president has a sworn duty to obey the laws passed by Congress. And when he starts to disobey those laws, it is our hope that enough of the Supreme Court, the woman whose name I forgot, who was a law professor at Notre Dame, she is on the wrong side of some social issues with me, and that's fine. But she does, I believe in the Constitution. I believe that Chief Justice Roberts believes in the Constitution, and that it's not okay to have an all-powerful president and dictator in our country. And so when you see Trump and his people running roughshod over the laws of our land and the Constitution, I'm hoping that the Supreme Court will see, all right, this is why the Founding Fathers structured it with three axes of power, that when one of them goes rogue, the other two will stand up to oppose it. Well, we'll see.
So it's basically the Michelle Obama-ing of the Democratic Party. When they go low, we go high.
Mm-hmm. That was a really good Michelle Obama.
Right? I get that a lot, actually, Matt.
Yeah. Do you do parties?
Yeah. You can't afford them, though, Matt.
What would a Poor Proles Almanac party be? What would a Poor Proles con be?
It'd be me as Michelle Obama. Clearly.
That's it. That's the main event, baby.
That's the whole party. And Matt just heckling me.
No, I'm critiquing your public health initiatives.
As you should.
Those burgers were made of plastic. How do you do it?
Stop giving cigarettes to kids.
I want more cigarettes. You gave me cigarettes as a kid.
500 cigarettes for children. That's the next platform. That's the next GOP platform.
Yeah.
And the Democrat platform will be, how about 100 cigarettes for children only?
Hear me out. I'm willing to negotiate, but this is where we should start.
500 cigarettes.
I do like that the best plan that at least he had on the spot for Mr. Bill Foster was that, we've got our, and this was obviously recorded earlier, but his big plan was, we've got the budget negotiation and we can, use that as leverage for the upcoming potential government shutdown.
They're upcoming a couple of pressure points. Right now, there are two things that Republicans have to do. They have to pass a budget and an appropriations bill to keep the government from shutting down, right? They are going to need, because in the U.S. House, they have very few votes to spare. They're going to need nearly every Republican to vote. I think they can lose no more than not even 3 Republicans. And so if we can find 3 Republicans that just don't agree with what Trump is doing, then we can block him on many, many fronts. And that's one of the things that are going to be measured. The other one is raising the debt ceiling. I am the lead Democrat on the subcommittee with oversight over all banking. So we're going to be at the center of this. The danger if we break the debt ceiling, it'll be a catastrophe for the economies of the world, really. And so this is something that enough Republicans understand that I think we have a chance of having a serious negotiation about a bipartisan solution to avoid breaching the debt ceiling. And this is going to be it'll be a moment of white knuckles negotiations coming up really in the next couple months. So we don't have zero leverage, but we're going to have to play our cards right.
And then fast forward to just a few days ago as we're recording this, and Senate Democrats immediately folded over. It should be noted that Democrats did not, in fact, use the budget as a bargaining tool, with the Senate establishment Democrats folding under pressure, voting to pass a budget, and with almost no concessions to show for it.
Yay.
Classic Democrats.
Classic.
I love it when they do the thing.
So, with national Democrats not being able to do much, I went more local. For the Poor Pro's Almanac, I'm Dominic Guanzan, and I'm joined by Illinois State Representative Dee Avalar of the 85th District. Thank you so much for your time. I know you've been very busy with the Assembly. I hope everything's been going all right here in the spring session, I believe.
That is correct, Dominic. Thank you so much for having me here. And yeah, we are right in the middle of spring session here in the Illinois General Assembly.
We'll get right into it. So, since President Trump's second inauguration, there has been a surge in very visible, very public ICE arrests, especially here in Chicagoland. What have you heard from your constituents about the recent ICE arrests?
Yeah, I mean, what we've heard from constituents is, this sense of fear, right? I think we are, one of the things that makes Bolingbrook such a good place to live in is its diversity, right? That was the reason why my parents actually moved to Bolingbrook in the early 2000s. They still live in the house that they bought, and as a proud Bolingbrook High School graduate, one of the things that I've always taken pride of is the diversity of our community. So when we have the threat of ICE coming to our neighbors' doors, it sparks a lot of conversations about what is this all about. This is not the first time, unfortunately, that this has happened. Right, there were a couple of years ago, before I was a state legislator and I worked with the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights, there was another operation, a targeted operation from ICE in the Chicagoland area, which does count the Collier counties, where we have people in the Bolingbrook area who were actually picked up. And one of the things that I always try to do is I always try to make sure that the facts are being disseminated, right? And while ICE likes to call these targeted operations, often what they don't say is that there is what they call collateral damage. I like to call them our neighbors, our families who have been contributing to our communities day in and day out. And we haven't seen the numbers yet of the recent operation, but in the last one that we had a couple of years back, there were over half of those who were apprehended have absolutely no criminal background. So to your question, right, I just going back to that, what we've been hearing from constituents is a lot of fear because of the uncertainty of not knowing if ICE is going to come to your door one day.
Yeah. I was going to ask, what can you recommend to constituents who are fearful of ICE arrests and these deportations? And I think, facts is, I remember the week before the Trump inauguration, there had been a press leak about the Operation Safeguard, the ICE operation. Mm-hmm. There's so much fear going around beyond just the facts, of course, which is so important. What can you recommend to constituents who are fearful of these ICE arrests?
Absolutely. I mean, what I recommend is what I recommend to all constituents, right? Which is the Constitution protects people's rights, no matter, whether you were born here or not. And we all have the right to remain silent. We all have the right to ask for a warrant, right? If somebody's trying to knock on your door. A lot of the work that has happened throughout not just the past few years, but decades by community organizers, by social service providers, et cetera, who have been letting people know that everybody, not just in the state of Illinois, but in the United States, has some basic rights. And one of those is you have the right to remain silent. So I think as far as what do I recommend? I recommend to get educated on what your rights are. Make sure that you connect to a community organization who does a lot of this Know Your Rights work. One of the greatest examples that we have here in Bolingbrook is Southwest Suburban Immigrant Project, a community organization that for the past decade has been doing a lot of community outreach and education on knowing your rights regardless of your immigration status. But they've also have been doing a lot of education with regards to your empowerment, right? I don't believe in this notion that you give voice to the voiceless, because I do, and I am a firm believer that everybody has their own voice. And we are there as community organizers to find that voice so that people can speak up for themselves.
Yeah. I actually, going off that, I observed a protest about a month, probably more than a month ago in Bolingbrook, where over 50 locals were protesting the recent ICE raids. and nearly all of the demonstrators were young Hispanics in front of the Bolingbrook High School. And they were protesting on behalf of their family members who are afraid to leave their homes. If you can imagine, just I don't know if you're familiar with that story. That it was like early February or late January. But if you were in front of those young Hispanics whose family members are afraid to step out of the house right now, what would you say to them in this moment?
What I would say is our communities have been under attack, whether you are Latino, whether you are African, Eastern European, Asian Pacific Islander. We know that unfortunately there's been an otherization, right, of people in a dehumanization of our neighbors, right? And I say our neighbors because the truth of the matter, like I go back to the beauty of Bolingbrook, which is its diversity. You could find in any given block people from multiple nationalities. Mm-hmm. The beauty of it is that we all bring with us not just culture, customs, but we also bring a sense of unity, right? There's a reason why my parents at around my age decided to leave Ecuador to look for a better life for their children. And I think that that is ultimately the American dream for people, whether you are a newcomer, whether you've been an immigrant who's been here for 25 years, like in the case of my family, or whether your family has been here for generations. You know, I think that the beauty of our country is this notion that there is an American dream, and the American dream is what you make of it. So I think what I would say to young activists, these young civic leaders, is to not give up, because I know that our families are depending on it, that this is not the first. And unfortunately, it's not going to be the last time when we see the political turmoil that we're seeing at the moment, but that at the end of the day, community and togetherness is at the end of the day what's going to keep us fighting. It's what's going to keep us resilient. And at the end of the day, we got each other's back.
Until I was researching this story, I didn't know how, like statistically, how diverse Bolingbrook was.
Yeah, it's about 1 out of every 4 residents is Latino.
Yeah.
In Bolingbrook. I go back to whether people have been living here since the 90s, early 2000s, or, you know, I have a lot of constituents who have moved in the past decade. I can tell you time and time again, when I've asked them, why did you decide to make Will County your home, particularly Bolingbrook or Romeoville, which is another one of the municipalities that I get to represent? Oftentimes, what I hear is the diversity, right? And I think that there's strength in diversity, and we just need to continue to be together.
And we're seeing a lot of top-down attacks on that diversity on a national level. Thankfully, it doesn't seem quite so much on a state level, especially with Governor Pritzker. But I know for the National Democratic Party, there's this sense, because I was in a town hall, at a virtual town hall for Bill Foster, and I understand he's got his hands tied because he mentioned, you know, being in the minority party in Congress and you know, having to deal with the consequences of the last election in 2024. But what can a minority party do? And I understand this that's on a national level, but for local Democrats or for local, you know, more liberal leaning people, what can they do in the situation in the second Trump administration?
Honestly, I think that one of our primary responsibilities as elected officials is to keep our ears to the ground, listen to the community, right? I think that many of us come, the beauty, I'll speak for my experience as a legislator, the beauty of being able to legislate in the House of Representatives in the state of Illinois is knowing that there's a vast majority of my colleagues that have come from all walks of life. Right? You have somebody who's a community organizer who was formerly undocumented, who was a nonprofit professional, who now gets to represent this wonderful area that I get to call the 85th district. But we also have accountants, we have attorneys, civil rights attorneys, immigration attorneys, doctors, school social workers, college counselors who have decided to step up and run for office. It's the way that I see it is I'm a vessel for community. So I need to be able to communicate what the community wants. Now, that requires having difficult conversations, right? Because it requires being able to have the ability to build consensus. And consensus is one of the most difficult things to build, because you can and you will have people who are on the opposite sides, right? And I respect having disagreements without being disagreeable. But we are at a juncture right now where we do have to speak up when we have people who are dehumanizing others. That is just not what we do. That is not what we represent.
You think the Democratic Party can do more in that regard?
I think so. I think we could always do more, right? And that is the beauty of being able to do this. I say this time and time again. I'm an elected official, and I do represent the 85th district with gratitude and with humbleness, because I know that it's not, especially around this time, there's a lot of politicization of students. There's a lot of politicization of curriculum. There's a lot of politicization of things that used to be bipartisan. And at this moment, I think that one of the things that we can do that is powerful is be messengers for being able to call out racism, call out misogyny, and being able to call out bad policies that at the end of the day don't represent American values. So as for, and I'm a Democrat. I'm proud to be a Democrat. We're not perfect. And that's also the beauty of it, that we are able to work on making sure that we make not just our constituents proud, but the founding fathers of the United States of America proud, by making sure that we stand in the right side of history.
Yeah, for sure. I know that, like the bipartisan, the heavy politicization, what is like an example of an issue or a topic that you would never have thought would be so politicized as they are now, on either a national or even a local level? Like for me,
COVID. Honestly, one of the perfect examples, COVID, the pandemic.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
Right? The response to a public health crisis, right? That should have been a moment where we were all rowing in the same boat towards the same direction. And we saw that was not happening, right? Like there's this, I have no words for it. I think that's the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
So the way that we handle the public health crisis, and you see it at the national level, right? States where, it was all boots on the ground, making sure that people were informed about not just COVID-19 and the resources available, but then if a person wanted to also get a vaccination, have that be readily available, and combating misinformation, right? I think till this day, that's still a big issue. So it's, I think that's a prime example.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the first thing you said about what you can do to combat the ICE raids. And that's information. And, we could probably go another hour on all that on, social media. But actually, you know what? Forgive me, I didn't do my research here. But is this your first position in government?
Yes, it is. So the way that if you would have told me when I was in high school, when I was a nonprofit worker, that, in 2021, I was going to be the first Latina to be elected to represent the 85th district, I would have said, no, I'm somebody who's behind the scenes, and yet here I am. I worked in a non-for-profit, the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights. That's actually how I started in civic engagement. And you might say like, well, there's like civic engagement, and then there's nonprofit, and then how did you get into the world of politics, right? I tell everybody everything is political, and especially when with the background that I come from, right, being an immigrant, moving to Will County at a young age, having English not being my first language, and having to navigate legal processes with my parents, right? I vividly tell this story because it's a good reminder to me of how language access is important. When my parents bought their house, I was their translator, and I was interpreting for them the contract that they were going to sign to officially become homeowners at 13 years of age. I tell people, right, like usually we don't like to think about politics, but every single thing that we do can be attributed to something that's affected by policy and politics, right? Being able to work. I actually went to an event in Springfield where the governor was talking about the fact that when his mother was organizing for the rights of women, it was back when women couldn't take out a credit card unless their husband gave them permission, right? And those are like good reminders of like how far we've come. But then it's also a reminder of like the pivotal moment that we are in history and everything else that we need to continue to do for the future. So I got involved because, I knew that there were policies that would affect my life and that of my family's well-being as well. That's why I decided to work at a non-for-profit, because I felt like that's how I was able to make change. I ended up managing our portfolio of state funding for naturalization. And that's how I got involved into state policy. And now here I am as a state representative.
For sure. Not all of your constituents are in danger of ICE raids. I was born in Chicago and, but why should natural born citizens be concerned on such matters happening now? What can they do?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why it should matter, right, it's solidarity. Usually a lot of us, and a lot of people, I should say, when it comes to immigration, it doesn't impact them directly. It's not something that you wake up and you're like, gee, I wonder what the feds are doing when it comes to immigration, because it doesn't impact your family. And that's okay. Like, I'm not going to go to somebody and say, like, how dare you not care about this? Mm-hmm. But what I will say is, it's just so important to get to know who makes up the fabric of your community. And there is a very important number of people who live in Bolingbrook who also make our community great, who are immigrants, who are naturalized citizens, who are legal permanent residents, who are refugees, who are asylees, who might be undocumented, and who are literally just looking for a shot at a better life. So why should somebody that's not affected by immigration be concerned about this? It's because it's your neighbors, right? It's your family members. There's a ton of people that I've talked to who come from mixed status families. Teachers, I've had teachers who have talked to me and at the beginning of the year who were concerned as to whether or not their students were going to show up to school. So it's a real issue.
Yeah. Representative Aguilar, I want to really thank you for your time. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you so much. You have a wonderful day.
That's all we have time for this episode, but stay tuned for the rest of this three-parter as we hear from local Chicagoans, break down the sanctuary designation, and later, learn the best practices for if and when ICE comes looking for the undocumented in your community. Don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, share on any socials you got. If you look up Poor Proles Almanac, you'll likely find us. You can also find me on Blue Sky and Instagram at Blue Collar Jazz, although warning, you will see a lot of Chicago jazz on there. I'm actually recording this in post, so I'm gonna grab a random Andy quote from this episode to close out. Andy, parting words.
Thanks, Obama.
Indeed.